Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the Coaching Call podcast. On this podcast, we'll cover various types of coaching by trainers in sports, martial arts, fitness, and business. We'll discuss each coach's methods to getting the most out of their respective athletes or clients and how they attempt to change the platform in which they coach. Join us on a fun adventure as we discuss unique coaching styles. Coaching is a universal part of how we get others to get something done. Join your host, Rafael, and his guests on this unique journey in coaching.
Hi, I'm Sifu Rafael, and this is the Coaching Call podcast. If you enjoy this episode, please subscribe and leave a review. This episode was made possible by listeners like you. Jen, good morning. Thank you so much for joining me on Coaching Call. How are you this morning?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. First of all, I want to thank you for your service because I believe that you, my dear, are an incredible human being for what you've accomplished. And we're going to get into it, right? So one of the things I love about this show is that I get to know you. And I do that by first asking you, where were you born and who influenced you even before the age of 10?
I was born in Detroit, Michigan. It was absolutely fantastic. I think it was a teacher that first influenced me more than any other.
Wow.
I'll just say that I'm very unusual in my family. I'm a very science and math oriented person. The rest of my entire family are all, they're very touchy-feely. They're more on the social side, and I didn't really understand them. And I had a teacher who really got me interested in math and science, and that took me in a completely different direction.
What grade was that? Do you recall?
I want to say it was first grade.
Really? That early? Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
And I've
And
been a math geek ever since.
yes, it's very interesting when you say that because by second grade, my son was reciting pi.
Wow.
And
Wow.
it was because of all the math stuff that I was teaching them all along the way. So I'm with you on the math part. And it was very, very interesting because before they can even talk, I was having them look at tables. I was having them look at multiplication tables and having them count cars or trees or whatever. So when they were in the back seat, they had assignments.
Wow.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun for me, and I think they enjoyed it too because then they would challenge each other. I have two boys, and it was kind of interesting.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'm going to have to tell that to a couple of my friends who have kids. That's a really great exercise.
Yeah. So I printed out multiplication tables. First, I did, when they were young, I did 1 to 10, and then I went 11 to 25.
Wow.
And so they had to learn just by repeating it. And eventually anybody would ask them, they would know the numbers, right? But it's the little things that we sometimes take for granted that make who we've become.
And it's so interesting because kids are such sponges.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people would have thought, oh, we'll wait till like first or second grade. But you started so early and they picked it up so quickly. It's just amazing what the human brain can do, at these really early stages of life.
Well, that's why think about the year 0 to 7 is probably the most growth that we have. That doesn't mean we stop growing after that, but it is such an important stage for any human being, any child.
Oh, yes.
And
languages. That's a perfect time to also teach multiple languages.
Yeah. I recall reading to my ex-wife's belly when she was pregnant, right? So all these different things that we can do to guide our future, because for me, I planned my children. I knew when I wanted to have them and all these things. So it's about, I guess, getting into fatherhood or motherhood for anyone is when you start to understand that every little action is going to impact their lives.
Right. You have a very holistic look at parenthood.
Oh
I
yeah.
love that.
Oh yeah. Well, I didn't grow up that way. So I said, what I didn't get, my kids are gonna get. Right? So
Perfect.
if we can give what we didn't have, that's a beautiful thing.
Oh, that's lovely. That's
So
really lovely.
I want to talk to you about your experience with this teacher who in first grade impacted you. And I'm sure that teacher may have spoken to other kids on their passion, but not everybody took it, right?
True.
Out of all the kids in your class, who was in it? Who was involved like you? Who was excited about math and
I
science?
think so. It was myself and probably a couple of, I hate to say this, a couple of the other boys were really into it.
Mm,
And I remember the math that we were doing, the science that we were doing. I remember making planets, and all of that, and
right,
all
right.
of the little, after school programs. Because in the first grade, we had like the same teacher all day long. And so
Mm,
it was also spelling and all these other things. But I just got so jazzed when it was time for the math and science portion of the day. And, it's like, just kind of sitting in my seat, just all excited. And I remember a couple of my other, guy friends at that point. I know that they were excited too. I wasn't very excited about the spelling or the English parts of the day, but I got through them. But yeah, it's just interesting. It's like it really stimulated different parts of my mind.
mm.
Especially when we started talking about planets. That's the one that I really remember, and understanding the solar system and how all the planets interact with each other. It's like, back then we also used to have Pluto, but we don't have Pluto anymore. But still, it was
Mhm.
still really exciting, and just understanding what a big universe we have.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So moving along, that sparked your interest. What kept your interest?
So this is going to sound really silly, but whenever I was about, let's see, about 10 years old, um, there was a Barbie dream house.
Mm.
And I know this sounds crazy, and I wasn't really into Barbie, but like I saved up all of my allowance so that I could go buy the Barbie dream house. And the reason why I bought it is so that I could build it, so that I could build it, so that I could tear it down, so that I could build it again, so that I could basically cut it apart and rearrange it. And that's what I did. I mean, Barbie never actually got to live in the dream house because it was always under renovation. And
I love that.
And that was one of those times when I realized, hey, wait a minute, like I love building. Like I really love constructing things. And that's been a theme throughout my entire life. And my mom realized this, that maybe I wasn't into some of the things that like a lot of other kids were. And so I started getting things like Tinker Toys and Erector sets and all of
Mm.
these other things, and so that I could build. And that's a theme that has gone on through my entire life, is I love to build.
Yeah, yeah. Is that what you would say started your understanding of? And you talked about building, but taking it down and renovating, making it better,
Yes.
seeing how else you can build it, how much faster you can do it, understanding, oh, this goes here without even looking at anything, right? Would you say that's what started maybe your engineering mind into developing?
Absolutely. I look back at my entire life, and that's like that one shining point in my life where I realized, oh, that's where it started.
Mm.
And it's like I can always trace it back to like that point. Beyond that, it's like I just remember sort of doing things, but that was like the one piece of my life that I remember is like, that's the point. That's the point where I remember love doing it. And I've been, like I said, I've been doing it ever since. I've been building all types of things.
Yeah, and we're gonna get into some crazy things you've built. I lo I I'm excited about this. So take me, what was your school days like? Were you the geek? Were you the nerd? Were you in the science lab when the other kids were, like, out doing things? So talk to us about that.
Most of my childhood, I was just really trying to fit in,
Mm.
um, sort of like a little gangly thing. So So I was always trying to just sort of fit in with everybody else. I always wanted to be part of the cool kids. And I think that was probably one of the things that I really wish I hadn't done, that I would have just been myself whenever I was a kid, because it was a lot of stress, and I look at kids now and I feel like, hey, you know what, stop trying to be like everybody else and just be happy, with who you are. My mom was also really into music. And so she got me involved in all types of, I played the violin and the piano. Then in high school, I played the clarinet, and then all of my friends that were in the band, we all taught each other instruments. So I know like 7 other instruments. But that was, and then I also wanted to be an athlete. And so I was a runner, and that was a lot of fun. And so I ran track, then I got into swimming. And so I was really all over the place. There's not really one, I wasn't with the jocks. I wasn't with the nerds. I was kind of like all in these different little places, and just trying, almost kind of like trying to fit in with each one, and kind of like a different personality whenever I was a swimmer, a different personality whenever I was in the band. I would, go to a lot of the like the science classes, and we had, the science club. So it'd be, somebody different in the science club. But it was actually pretty exhausting trying to be all of those different people, to, everybody.
Yeah. Well, when you put on so many hats, your head gets wobbly, right?
It's true.
What was high school like for you when moving up your timeline? And what was one of the most memorable things that you can remember from high school?
Wow, one of the most memorable from high school. I was able to get onto the swim team. And I said, like, I was kind of a gangly little thing, and a coach believed in me. I got in the pool. I grew up, actually was born in Detroit, but I grew up in West Texas, and everybody in West Texas has a pool. So I've been swimming of some kind, all my life.
Right.
And like, he saw something, and like, that was really one of the first times that somebody, saw something and really brought something out in me. And that was really, really exciting. A lot of people are just like, okay, well, yeah, she's good at science, just let her do that, but he really honed in. He's like, you are really good at the backstroke. He's like, this is your stroke. And it was really interesting. And it's like, out of all of the things I had done, I had never really thought about it. And he made me a really great backstroke swimmer. But just like the confidence that he instilled in me, that was actually pretty exciting.
That is pretty cool when somebody has that confidence, and it's now instilled in you that you don't have to go looking for it anymore. It's inside, right?
Right.
I love that. I want to get into you have had such an amazing career in the military, and then we're going to get into which military.
Okay.
At what point did you start to pursue that, and what was the catalyst for that pursuit?
Well, the engineering part or the military part?
Let's
Or
go
both?
which came first, or both.
Well, I became an engineer. So I
Okay.
went to Texas A&M University. I didn't really understand what an engineer was. I knew it wasn't the people who drove the trains, because that's what I've been taught my entire life.
Right.
And it took me about a year to try to figure out what type of engineer I wanted to be. But then once I got into that, wow, I was so excited, because it's like, this is my passion. I mean, because I tried mechanical engineering, I tried civil engineering, electrical engineering. It wasn't for me. And then I became an ocean engineer. And that was exciting, and it was vibrant, because it's all about dynamic systems and how do we build in this type of environment. And I was like blown away, and I had these amazing professors. It was so much fun. But the thing is that whenever I was about to graduate, I was looking at all my friends. They were all going down to Houston to get a job at a big corporation.
Right.
And I had all this angst. I was like, I need to do something. I need to get out. I need to see the world. And a friend of mine went to go do an internship with the Army Corps of Engineers. I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. So I went and talked with them. And then I found out that the Navy had a civil engineer corps. And what they do is they go out all over the world and they build. They have battalions worth of people, and they go out and they build. And I thought, that sounds like a lot of fun. And that's what got me into the Navy. Because it's like, I didn't want to go and sit behind a desk immediately. I needed to get out. I needed to see the world. I needed to meet new people and experience new cultures. And so it really wasn't a hard decision. I was like, that's what I'm doing. I'm going to the Navy. So parents were a little shocked, but yes.
I was going to ask you that next. What were your parents' thoughts at that point? Like, what are you doing?
They really did, because I'm young and I'm making this what seemed like an impulsive decision. And at that time, my stepdad and, so many others had been drafted to go to Vietnam, and nobody else in my family had been in, my grandfather obviously was drafted to go to World War II. My uncle's drafted to go to the Marines. So everybody had been drafted. Nobody chose to go to the military. And the fact that I chose to go and they had these terrible experiences, there was a lot of pushback. But I said, you know what? It's a different time. And I think I'm going to do really well at this because I'm choosing what I'm going to do.
Right. Yeah. Interesting that everybody else was drafted. And I recall back that I signed up to be put on the list to be drafted, but I didn't sign up to go into it. My brother signed up and he became a Marine. But I was, I think it was Jimmy Carter back in the day where he had said, okay, we may be going to war. Everybody, you got to go to the post office every couple of days, every week, and see if your number comes up. And I used to go there every week. And I was like, if I have to go, I have to go. But I never did. And I think I lived through my brother's experience. And the discipline came from me through him, right?
Okay.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. So here you are faced with the possibility of building, which is what you started doing back in the day when you were a child and you loved it. And now you go, wait a minute, I could go all over the world and build? Wow. Sign me up, right? And that's basically what you did, right?
Exactly. And I get paid for it.
And so, you get what? You get paid, get paid to play? What is this?
Exactly.
How many people in the world don't understand the concept of getting paid to do what you love, right? And this is why there's so many miserable people, because they look at careers that don't make them happy. You looked at one that said, this speaks to me.
Yes.
And that's a beautiful thing. I always say when I grow up, I'm going to get a job, I promise. But that's never going to happen for me because one, I'm never going to grow up and I'm never going to get a job. So, so the passion that you found, did it live up to your expectations when you actually joined?
A little bit. It was pretty terrifying for the first couple of months because they sent me to officer candidate school where I got yelled at by drill instructors every day. That was pretty terrifying. I'd never been through anything like that before, but came out stronger on the other end. My first duty station was in Guam. I mean, this is a West Texas girl going out to a small island in the middle of the Pacific, like 12 hours, from everybody. And it was fantastic. I mean, but you're also like the lowest person on the totem pole.
Oh, yeah.
And, so you don't get the best jobs, but at the same time, one of the things that the Navy does is they just throw everything at you. My first year, I was in charge of $12.6 million worth of contracts.
Wow.
I mean, think about that.
Yeah.
And then, I'd call my friends back in Houston and they're like, we're just getting coffee for people, so, so they give you all this responsibility and it was fun. I mean, I met so many great people. I learned so much so quickly. And then after that, that's when they sent me over to the battalions, and the battalions are made up of a group of enlisted personnel. And that's where you really go out to different areas of the world and do construction. Previous to that, I was basically on the base and we were working on the housing. We were working on new construction on the island of Guam. But whenever you're in the battalions, you're going all over the world.
Mm, mm. What was one thing that you dreaded during that time that you were being yelled at on a daily basis?
Oh man, I didn't even want to get up in the mornings. I mean, it started early, and there was like clanging bells and like all kinds of things to like get you up in the morning. You didn't really have a chance to not dislike everything because you just liked. I mean, you didn't like anything about the day. I mean, you got up and you started your physical training. You went to classes. The classes were great. They were really nice. But then after that, then you were back with your drill instructor who was making you do push-ups and sit-ups and run 3 miles and do all kinds of horrible things to get you in shape. But uh, I really, because I said that I was a runner, like I did well in the running and I liked the running piece. I did not like the push-ups part. Look at these arms, just
Ooh.
wasn't really, a push-up kind of girl. So the push-ups are probably the hardest part about all of it. I thought the classes, they were great. I thought they were pretty easy. It was just a lot of the physical fitness stuff that I hadn't really been used to. Wasn't really a fan of a lot of that, but
Right.
really came out so much stronger on the other end.
Oh, of course, of course. When you do something that it's that pressure building, right? You need to have that pressure to build something, right? Just like when you work with steel or anything else, you need that pressure. Talk to us about your first project. You talked about having a $12.6 million budget that you were in charge of. What was that first project that you were excited yet nervous yet terrified about?
We were building new homes on the island of Guam. And so I was really in charge of this whole small development.
Mm,
It was, I mean, that's crazy to think about. Here's a like 23-year-old in charge of the contracts to build housing.
mm,
It was very detailed. And so you have all the contractors that are there. And so you're making sure that you have all of the updates. You're going out to the site. I mean, it's like, the Barbie dream house by like, 12. And it was exciting, but boy, it was challenging because you have contractors and, again, you're 23 years old and you're talking to some 56-year-old man who's done it all, and has a cigar hanging out of his mouth. And, how do you get him to understand? It's like, no, you're not doing this right. So that was very challenging, but it was fun at the same time because you're really seeing something built right in front of your eyes.
mm, mm. I'm in charge of this Barbie house. You do it this way.
Exactly. It's like, no, the door should be over there. Just things like that. It was, you're looking at the plans and, they've done it all and you're trying to convince them that, no, this is not the proper way to do it. So there was a lot of headbutting and things like that, but you eventually get through all of that.
So at what point did you learn how to read blueprints? Because I used to do architectural design, so I know how to read blueprints. How did you get that? Was that in your classes or was that on the field?
It was on the field. I guess I taught myself. I never really thought about it.
Yeah.
Now that you said that, it's like, no, they just handed me blueprints and I looked at them and I figured it out and off I went. So
There we go. Good
I
thing
know
you
that's not really a good answer, but it's just like, I don't know. I just did it. So
yeah. Well, and they chose you because they saw something and you, just like that swim coach saw something in you, that you can do this and you can handle it and you can get better at it.
it's
So
true.
that was your first project, building human-sized Barbie houses, if you
Yes.
will.
Not
I
as
love
fancy. Not as
I
fancy. There was
love
no elevators in any of them.
Mm. But I love the analogy of your Barbie houses that you never Barbie never lived in them. They was always under construction or remodeling. But in these, there was no remodeling. It was a one time, let's get it done. Let's move to the next one, move to the next one. Um, and when you think about building, and you talked about the man with the cigar, and he's done it all. As you're teaching or you're helping an old dog find a new trick or find a new way of doing things, and I can only imagine the pushback, like, who are you young girl, kind of nonsense, right?
Yes.
But they had to do it anyway because you were the one in charge, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, they realize it's like I might be a woman, but I'm in uniform, and they know that ultimately we are the ones that are in charge, which helps out a lot.
Yeah.
And I hadn't quite figured out yet at that young age really how to talk to them. How, at that point I was like, no, this is how to do it.
Mm.
Now I'm to the point where it's like, hey, let's sit down, let's discuss this. This is what we need to do. That's come more with age and maturity. Back then I was like, no, you're wrong.
Yeah.
So probably not the most effective way to communicate with a contractor, but I've definitely had the chance over years, and mentors came a little bit after, that have helped me figure out how to do things a lot better than just being my pig-headed self and saying, no, you're wrong.
You're in Guam, but then you said you went out into the world, right?
Yes.
To really experience so much more.
Yes.
Talk to us about what was that first experience, that first time when you realized that, oh, wait a minute, I'm no longer stuck here. I'm doing all these cool things, but now I go to do like really incredible
Well,
journey, or whatever you want to call it.
I think this was such great timing. When I went to the battalion, the whole battalion was going to Okinawa. And then from there's small detachments that peel off in different directions. They might go to different parts of Japan. Well, I had the fantastic chance to go to Alaska, which is like, why would you go to Alaska from Japan? But I did. And we went to this tiny little island right off of Ketchikan, and we were in charge of drilling and blasting. So now I'm a lieutenant junior grade, which is like the next step up in being an officer. And they put me in charge of 14 people. And so it's just me and 14 people on this tiny little island. I mean, there's other people, obviously,
right.
but I'm the one in charge, like really in charge. And I'm now in charge of everything. I'm in charge of the production of the drilling and blasting. I'm in charge of making sure that they get all their training done and all the administrative nonsense done. I'm in charge of making sure that they get food, that they have water. I'm in charge of all of it. And it's like, wow. So now I'm like 25, and now I'm in charge of 14 people. And wow, it was so much fun. I mean, you can't really have a bad day when you're blasting. It's really exciting. And, just being able to really start to hone my leadership skills. Luckily, at that point, they teamed me up with a senior enlisted member. He's a chief. And he really, really helped me learn how to be a better leader. Because like before, I was like, I told you, it's like, you're wrong. Don't do it that way. Well, I kind of brought that attitude with me. And he's like, that's not what you need to do. You need to be you. You need to listen. He's like, I realize you're one of those people who really likes to listen to people and, take in their information. And he's like, I've seen that from you. And he's like, use that, don't just stand up there and just like point to people, tell them what to do. He's like, you can be a better leader. He's like, get to know your personnel. And we had the most fantastic deployment. I mean, just working with that chief and really understanding who I could be as a leader, as opposed to someone who just, gets up and shouts out orders at people. Wow. Wow, it was so great. And like, I just remember Chief Willis. Chief Willis is the one who basically put me on the path of being a better leader.
Yeah. He taught you some EQ, huh?
He did.
Intelligence. Yeah.
Right. It wasn't even called that back then, but it was great.
Yeah. Great advice. And for him to say, I see that in you, it's once again instilling that confidence, right? That you needed at the time, because you could have turned out to be that other leader.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Oh, so easily.
Looking
Everybody
back,
around me was.
Yeah, you could have, right?
Yes. All my bosses were like that. Basically, so for a while I thought, oh, well, that's how you get people to do what you want them to. You yell at them. And if you yell at them, they do what you want to do. So, hey, there you go.
I love
And
that.
that's the way it was. And
Yeah.
so I'm really appreciative of Chief Willis. And, this kind of brings up sort of there's kind of repetitious is, people seeing something in you and bringing it out. And that's so important that we do that for the people around us. We can make them better people too.
Yeah, without a doubt. I want to share something here. Take a look, everybody. Who is that person right there? What?
That's
That
me.
right there. I got to tell you, that right there is you. But what impresses me is not just your beautiful smile, but let's be honest. It's that I'm gonna blow that picture up a little bigger. Hang on a second. I gotta see where my things are. I gotta look here and move things around a little bit because I think there it is, right? All those medals, young lady.
Yes.
I'm like, was it heavy on that side to walk?
So you say that because after a while, this side of the uniform starts to dip a little bit. So you're always trying to make sure that doesn't,
Right.
it doesn't dip too far to the left. Yes. I've had the opportunity to go all over the world. I've been to Iraq. I've been to Afghanistan. I've led lots of people. And so when you start to do that, then you do start to, kind of get the chest candy, as we like to call it.
Chest candy. Look at that.
Mm-hmm.
And you talked about going all over the world and doing all these different things. And I want to show a video first, but then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about the tours that you've had and how long you've served. My goodness, it's incredible. I just want everybody to take a quick look at this. You followed the rules, tried the restrictions, counted the carbs, the steps, and the failures. You're not lazy, you're exhausted from doing it all without real change. What if the problem isn't you, but the plan? Sifu's Mind-Body Method is a 90-day transformation built on 7 unshakable pillars: mindset, movement, nutrition, hydration, fasting, journaling, and faith. This isn't another shortcut. It's your structure, your strength, your reset. You don't need harder, you need better. Ready to begin? Start today. And that's what I have going on now currently. I'm so passionate about it.
Oh, that's wonderful.
I'm sorry?
That is wonderful.
Yeah. When I realized that a lot of people are living a life that they're not fully happy with, the body that they're not happy with, let's reset because we're meant for more, right? And you understand that. So tell us how long you did serve in the military for.
I served for 27 years, both active and reserve.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you again for your service. This is incredible.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Why'd you stay in it so long? Why'd you stay? Most people go in for one stint and that's it. They're out.
I said that I would stay in until I'm not having fun anymore. And in truth, I still was having fun, but I was the Commodore. I was in charge of 1,800 people. And I realized that whatever the next job I would have, I would be, we call it a staff weenie, so I would be sitting behind a desk. I wouldn't be in charge of anybody. I might have some program that I'm running. And I'm like, no, I love my troops. I love being able to help as many of them as I can. I love what we do. And I didn't want to be a staff weenie. And so I said, you know what? Now is a perfect time for me to step down and to retire and, let some of the other people have the ability to come up and have the other opportunities that I did. So I decided, you know what? When I left as a Commodore, I said, you know what? This is the perfect time to retire. You went from 14 people that you were leading to
1800. The only thing that I'm thinking is you more than proved yourself over and over and over and over again, because you went from helping build Barbie houses to leading 14 people to blasting. The danger there also had to be imminent, right? So if you think about the safety protocols that had to be in place, right?
Oh,
So that
absolutely.
nobody would die. And I know a lot of military people who are on tankers and all these different things. The safety protocols are huge,
Oh, yes.
especially in the Navy, especially
Yeah.
in a submarine, right? Things of that nature. There's so many great books that have been written by captains, and you yourself were a captain. You
I
said you
was.
were a Commodore. What is the difference? Tell us about your ranks and how you moved up.
Uh, sure. So I was the lieutenant junior grade while I was in Alaska. I made lieutenant, and it feels like you're a lieutenant forever. I think most people are lieutenants for like 6 years. It's just a long time.
Right.
Then I finally made lieutenant commander, and I was put in as the operations officer for a battalion. That's the one that went over to Iraq. We did great things over there, did lots of great building, and came back, was selected to be a commander. Whenever I was selected to be a commander, I was then given control of a battalion. So I was the commanding officer of a battalion. I was the very first female commanding officer that they'd had. So that was kind of exciting too.
Wow.
Went through my tour in Afghanistan with that battalion, had a couple other jobs, and then I was selected for captain. And that was pretty exciting. And I did a couple of staff jobs for that. And then they picked me to be a Commodore. So a Commodore is a captain, but it's the title as opposed to the rank, if that makes sense. A long time ago, a Commodore was a rank, but now it's basically just a title. And I was actually pretty disappointed. You've always seen the movies, where the Commodore has like that big hat with all the feathers.
Right.
Well, that didn't come with the job. So
Oh man.
I know. So I was pretty disappointed at that. But I got to be a Commodore, and not many people get to be Commodores. And that was, that's the highlight. If you're in the military, you could go be an admiral, which is great too. But being the Commodore is the pinnacle of everything.
Wow. So did you ever buy the hat on your own?
My husband did.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's great. Great to hear it.
He made me wear it to parties. So
there you go. with your jacket with all the
yes.
metal.
Yes.
Nice. In retrospect, looking back at your life, you said it's time for me to retire.
Yes.
A lot of people retire, they sit home, they look back at albums, pictures, they sit around, they watch TV, they do all these things, but not you. What was retirement for you?
It was just walking through one door and into another.
Love it. Tell us about that other door.
Well, all my life I've been helping people. You're leading people, but my leadership philosophy is you're not a good leader unless you're developing the people below you. But whenever I retired, I realized it's like, who am I going to be able to help? Well, a very good friend of mine, her name is Allison Levine. I think she's the most popular female speaker in the United States right now. Our husbands work together in the FBI. And so we get together, and she once asked me and said, "Hey, have you ever thought about speaking?" And I said, "No." So again, not really giving it much thought. And she said, "You really should." She said, "You should think about starting to tell your story." And that started to germinate, and I started to really think about it. And I said, you know what? I should do that. And so I decided to become a speaker. And what I've also realized is that, man, I have the ability to help so many people, through my speeches, and just the ability to have people come up to me afterwards and go, "Thank you. I've been trying to figure this out, and you really helped me over this hump." I mean, it's like, okay, if I can just help one person in each speech, that's what I'm built for. And then
Yeah.
just recently, I've also realized it's like, okay, helping a massive, I just had a thing I was teaching I was speaking in front of 1,400 people, and, several people came up to me afterwards, and that's great. But I also realized that there's more one-on-one connection if you're coaching. And so
Mm.
I've also started coaching people as well, because that's where you can really get, instead of just hitting the tip of the iceberg, you can really deeply help people. And so that's what I've started to do this year, is really start to do that deep help, by
Mm.
coaching one-on-one.
Love it. Love it. And my gosh, with leadership and everything that your experience alone, there's probably so many thousands upon thousands of lessons that you can share with people that will help them in their endeavors, right?
Absolutely. Everything from different leadership styles to, hey, you know what? I have got an obstacle that I have to overcome. I mean,
Mm.
I'll just tell you, I've had imposter syndrome, I've had self-doubt, I've had all of it also along the way. But
Mm.
I've figured out how to get over those. And so if I can help people with those as well, in addition to helping their leadership style, that's a win-win right there.
Well, that's huge. It really is. It really is. And that is such a major thing for so many people, the imposter syndrome, right? Um, would you mind sharing with us how you overcame that?
I will just tell you, in Afghanistan,
Go ahead.
I had a really hard time.
Mm, that's okay. Thank you.
So
Thank you for wanting to share. Appreciate you.
I did what I could. And, I got through it. I got all my people home safe. But there were certain events that happened during that deployment that really wrecked my sense of self.
Mm,
And ever since then, I've had all these doubts along the way. It never really happened earlier in life, but it was like really whenever I got torn down and just I was a shell of myself and I realized I had to build myself back. That's when the doubts started to come in, and I just started to think, why am I even here? Am I really supposed to be here? And I had to dig myself out. And so the way that I did that is I studied and I started reading books. I started listening to podcasts, and I thought about, what have I done in my life whenever I've had like a real physical enemy, that's been coming up to me. And I created my own little framework. And it really starts with understanding my value,
mm,
and what I have done, like what is real. And I started to just start writing down all of my different accolades, everything from, winning the fourth grade science fair. And then kept going and started to think about like, I've done all of these things. They're real. And like I had to internalize that and realize, hey, you know what? I have done things and I can do these next things.
yeah.
But I also had to understand how I did those things. It wasn't enough to just realize like, okay, I've done, XYZ and all these other things. I had to realize how. And that was the key whenever I realized how I
Mm,
had done it. I am actually fairly resilient. I am pretty scrappy. All of these different things. And I realized, wait a minute, I do have strengths. I do have strengths that are going to allow me to do these different things in my life now. But I had to create this little framework for myself to try to get back to where I was basically prior to Afghanistan.
wow. Thank you for sharing that. I know that was you sharing with us, and I truly appreciate it. What an incredible drill that you did for yourself to go back and say, in fourth grade, I won the science fair. I won this. I have all these accolades. So the imposter syndrome starts to fade because you start to see all the incredible things you've accomplished. And
Right.
I think that's a great drill for someone to do. And I'm sure you teach them how to do it even way better than what we're talking about here. This is why everybody should go to jendonahue.com and connect with her.
Yes.
But such a great thing to do for anyone. And even if you don't have imposter syndrome, right? To just go ahead and go back and say, wow, look at what I've done with my life. What
Right.
what can I build from there? Right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We all have these great things that we've done. And, when I've talked to different people, this is the hardest part for them is remembering and actually owning some of their accomplishments.
Yeah.
And, it's like, just own it. And I think that's the most important. And once they start to really own their own accomplishments, you can see that their confidence and their courage, it starts to come back.
Yeah. I mean, look, we talked about you building little Barbie houses and then building big human Barbie houses. Because everything I believe in, that's why I love going back into your childhood, because it allows us to even think about like, wow, look what I've done, where I used to be and where I am today, right?
Right.
So today you are impacting people at a way deeper level. Don't get me wrong, as a captain and then a Commodore, you impacted people deeply, but now it's more personal, right? It's more into who they are. Talk to us about how that makes you feel.
I honestly believe I was put on this earth to help as many people as I can. And that's how I want to live the rest of my life. And so when I'm working one-on-one with someone, and just to see, like the little, like, oh, like, it's like, to me, I'm like, Jazz, like, yes, you can do it. Keep going, keep going. On the, the outside, I'm like, very good, very good. But on the inside, I'm like, just so excited about, them making these little leaps, that they can make themselves, just that much better, have a little bit of courage to go after whatever that goal or that dream is.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, that's why I get up in the morning. I want to help people. Like, I have had all of this help that you've, heard along the way, from my science teachers to my coaches to mentors and things like that. And I'm giving back. And I want to, what would the world be like if we're all able to help as many people as we could? Like, what would the world look like at that point? Think about it.
Yes, yes. You and I, we're so aligned because every morning I wake up and I ask God to give me the strength. At first, I thank Him for all the gifts He's given me, but also give me the strength to help as many people as I possibly can and to share the gifts He's given me, right? So you and I are very, very much aligned in that regard.
Absolutely. It's a great way to live.
Oh my God.
It's like, it's not living for ourselves, it's living for other people.
Yeah. But we have to live for ourselves first, right? This is why I get up so early in the morning. I am so selfish when I first get up. It's all about me, 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 me. And look at that.
Gotta get out the coffee.
But then once I encounter another human being, it's no longer about me. It's all about them, right? How can I help? And I think that's such an incredible message that you're giving to people. So your friend suggested you become a speaker. And then you said, wow, that does speak to me. Because guess what? We're speaking now.
Yes.
Why can't I speak to many? Why can't I help many? And then coaching was just a natural next evolution for you. But then there's something else that you've done. Talk to us about that. That is your book.
Oh, the book. Yes.
Yes.
I'm like,
what did I do? What did I do?
I'm like, what have I been doing? No. Yes. I wrote a book. And it goes through how to get over your imposter syndrome, the fear of failure, the fear of success. And it talks about the framework, and it really goes in depth into what the framework is and how it was developed. I've gone out and interviewed tons of friends and family, and I have the most incredible people around me, and just pulling their stories in to talk about what resilience really is, what discipline really is, and in all of these different facets that can go into the way that we can not just get over our imposter syndrome, but how can we defeat it really quickly? Because I honestly believe once you have it, it's going to keep coming back. But the question is how do you, if it does come back, how do you defeat it more quickly and not let it even take purchase in your life. And so that's what the book is all about. And it'll come out in March of 2026.
Wow, look at that. And guess what? In the comments, you can get your book. You can sign up for it and get it. Right. And thank you for sharing that link with us, because I think it's going to be an amazing book that we all should have and read. And we should put it on our coffee table, our night table, read it. One of the things that I can already tell that it's a book that's worth reading more than once. And I have several books like that, for me, when a book really touches, I I'm not just a reader. I also take notes when I'm reading. So sometimes I'll mark a book, I'll take a notes. I create a whole folder in my Remarkable too, just on that book. So I can really analyze what I'm reading, because otherwise I might as well just sit back and watch a movie, which I love doing, by the way. I watched Gandhi over 180 times.
Wow.
Why? Because if you think about what this man did, he influenced over 200 million people with his words, with his action and non-action.
Right.
Incredible, incredible. So yeah, it was an incredible movie to watch. But here's the cool thing. I worked at the movie theater that hosted the premiere, so I got to meet all the actors.
Wow.
It was an incredible, but just I got to see the movie over and over, and then I get to meet the people. I'm like, whoa, this is beyond incredible.
Oh, wow. That's a great experience.
Oh yeah, and look, the experience here is I'm talking to you, the author of this incredible book that everybody needs to get. Hello. And then I know, Jen, you're going to be on my author's tales later on, and we're going to go deeper into your book. I'm excited for that. I'm excited for what you're doing. And I know that I'm going to have you on my other shows, because the value that you're bringing to the world is one that everybody should pay attention to, right? Everybody should reach out to you and talk to you. So we have your website going across the bottom, and usually I give somebody 45 seconds or whatever, but I'm giving you the rest of the time. We have 7 minutes left. Tell us about your website. Tell us what people can expect when they start to maybe even work with you.
Absolutely. Wow. I have so much time.
Yes. We can talk about other things, but I just want to give you the platform to use for you.
So the website is more geared right now for my speaking, and it talks about the different keynotes that I give. One of them is all about the unity paradox, and it's about understanding your personnel and cherishing their individualism, so that you can create value within your entire industry. And so, because a lot of people, they just sort of like group everybody together and they don't really think about what each person brings to the fight. And so the unity paradox is all about how do we celebrate individualism so that we can have a unity of purpose so that we can get to success. Right. My other keynote is really about becoming the warrior. So it's the keynote that goes with the book. And so the keynote only hits sort of the little surface of it and gives some people some, tips and tricks in order to get over their own imposter syndrome, fear of failure, and just sort of the obstacles that are coming up, in their way. It also goes into, like, I have a whole page about like who I am. I'm an avid baker. I was in the military. I'm an engineer. I do all these things. But the coaching piece, we're still filling out that portion of the website, and I'm so excited about this, and just the ability, to reach out to people and touch them and help them with their lives.
Love it, love it. And when you say you're working out the coaching part, I think you have it. And when you talk about working it out, it's just a matter of I think, as a coach and mentor to so many people, I think everybody inspires you to be a different or a better coach, right? Talk to us about the first person that you probably didn't even know you were coaching?
I would say my good friend. And, there's all these little examples that come up from time to time. She was one of the people who pre-read my book. I had everybody I had like 20 different people read each chapter, give me comments on the chapter so that I can make it better before we actually publish it. And she came up to me the other day and she said, I was channeling you. And I'm like, I have no idea what that means. like, is that voodoo? I don't know. But she had to go through a really stressful situation. And, as part of the book and part of the things that, I've been, helping people with is how do we get through, really hard situations and come out okay on the other side. And she said, I started channeling you and all of the things that we've been talking about, things that are in the book. And I just said, okay, what would Jenn do? And she's like, okay, you know what? I had this really hard conversation and it went really well. And we're all better for it on the other side. And I just thought, that's amazing. It's like you're helping people, but like you said, you might not even know, how you're rubbing off on people and how you're helping people in the meantime.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It's very interesting. I've had clients say to me things like, I thought of you in the middle of the night. I'm like, whoa, hold on a
Oh,
minute.
that's
Hold on a minute.
personal.
They're like, no. I was thinking of how to set my day for the next day, and you popped into my mind and how you set your day and all this. Okay, thank you for that. But a lot of times we don't even realize that the impact that sometimes our message is going to land on a person. And sometimes when we want it to land, it doesn't, right?
Right.
And so other times when we don't expect it, it does. And that's the beauty of what you and I do, is that we're just there. We're sharing what's in our heart, what we know that has worked in the past. But it's up to the individual to actually grasp it. It's up to them, right?
It is.
So I think that watch out for everybody who decides that they want you as a coach, because they're going to be not only enamored by you, but also going to a higher level of themselves because of what you do. I can tell already that you're going to be, and you are a phenomenal coach. But also, I think that when you talk about how you did the smartest thing that some people don't do. They just take a book and they publish it without anyone seeing it, and then it flops, and then there's no review, if you will, because they're the only critic, right? Meanwhile, we need critics in our lives. We
We
need
do.
them so desperately. This is why we need a coach. This is why I have a coach, because they're my critics. They're like, no, don't do it like that. Do it like this, right? Oh, I like what you did here. What if you changed it? What if you did this? What if you did that? Or, you know what? I'm not touching it because what you're doing is great. So,
Right.
yeah, critics are so important, aren't they?
They really are. Man, I had such great feedback for the book. Because I asked them, was like, is this clear? And several people came back and they said, hey, we didn't really understand this piece. Well, guess what? I totally rewrote it, send it back to them. And they're like, oh, I got it now. And so now that piece is so much better for the rest of the world.
That's right.
And so just those little pieces, just taking the time, because the book is not for me. The book is for them. And making sure that my ideal audience knows it, understands it, can get through the exercises. That's what it's all about. It's not about me.
Right.
It's about them.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that, because a lot of people write books for them and not for their audience. Right. You know how many you know how many books I've people send me books all the time, right? And it's just, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me. I'm like, okay, I saw you, and I'm closing the book. But the problem with me is that I'm not a quitter, so I have to read the whole book. So, but so many times when we have a book that I want to read over and over and over again, it's because it's speaking to me.
Right.
And I know that's what your book is going to do once I get my hands on it. I can't wait. It's going to be
Soon,
exciting.
very soon.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited. Jenn, thank you.
Thank you so much
I
for having me.
love your energy. I love what you're doing. I love the fact that you served our country with such vigor, with such enthusiasm and excitement, right? Um, and now you're helping the country in a different way. So thank you for your service and your continued service because you're still serving. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for having me. This has been a really, really fun podcast. And I want to say thank you to you. Thank you for everything that you do and how you help other people. You have a very strong message and, keep it up. This is important.
Thank you. Thank you. Hang on for a minute. Everybody, do me a favor. Share this episode. What an incredible episode, because Jenn shared with us so many great concepts that you need to implement in your life. And don't forget, connect with Jenn. She is a powerhouse. Thank you, everybody. We will see you soon. Take care.